Hey everyone, welcome back to the Maker's Gonna Learn YouTube channel. My name is Alicia. I'm a craft producer here with Maker's Gonna Learn. And today we're gonna be making a 3D paper project. So this is something that is gonna work perfectly for all of the men in your life, or even the women if they're really into baseball caps or sports or anything like that. This gift is very versatile and it's homemade. So we're gonna walk you through step by step on how to cut and assemble this hat, and then I have a bonus tutorial at the end on how to make some gold stickers to go on the bill of your cap. If you all are ready, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So this is what we're going to be making today. Is this not the cutest ever? It's a little baseball cap. I'm going to be showing you a haul how to make these little gold stickers. I feel like this is such a fun touch. And then we're also going to be adding this little accessory right here. And then as you can see, this just opens up and look, there's like a little area to put a gift or candy or something like that. I just love how this turned out and it's so fun to make. So we are gonna go ahead and get right into it. So really, when you're making this hat, if you're not gonna do any of the accessories, you can make this with such minimal supplies. You're basically gonna just need at least 3 pieces of cardstock of the similar color. I've got a light grip mat, which we use for all of our cardstock crafts. And then I have an ATG. This is a double-sided tape adhesive gun. I've got some precision tip glue. Now, Zig pin is something we use a lot of, but tacky glue is good if you're needing a little bit more glue, if that makes sense. Like if you need a little bit more heavy duty, these are both gonna work. You just need a precision tip glue stick. I've got a spatula or a bone folder is gonna help. Just something to help you lay down those edges on the creases really well. I've got a brayer, and then I have a hot glue gun. Okay, so this hat is an exclusive Maker's Gonna Learn file, and I love this file. There are a lot of pieces, but they're really not that bad to assemble. If you've never done a 3D paper project, I don't know that this is necessarily a beginner project, but you're definitely gonna get a dose of all of the different things that 3D paper crafting entails. And so basically, whenever you pull in any of these paper crafting images, a lot of times you're gonna need to like change the lines to score lines and things like that so that your scoring stylus can actually make the creases for you, which allows the paper to bend easier. But with this file, I'm gonna zoom in so you all can see, you actually will not be needing to use the scoring stylus because we have put these perforated edges in, and so your fine point blade is just gonna go through and cut all of this. Now, I do recommend going ahead and putting in a fresh fine point blade to make sure that your cuts are gonna be super clean for this project, because we do have a lot of intricate cuts. You can see on the teeth on the sides of these are gonna be very detailed, and we just wanna make sure that we're not using a dull blade when we're cutting paper because we need a good clean cut. This is everything you're gonna need. Now, the project that we're creating today, I only use 3 pieces of cardstock, and that's because that's how much we need to accommodate the size of this image. Now, depending on how big that you want your hat is gonna depend on how many pieces of cardstock you need. So the hat that I showed you all earlier, this is the exact size. And you can see right here, if I go pull in a square, this is how I know how big my project is gonna be. I'm just gonna pull in a square and we're gonna measure the base of it, because this is pretty much the biggest of the project. Like this is the biggest area of the project. What I like to do is just turn this to a guide, and then I will take this square and drag it to the width and height of that little area. And then you can see over here, it's like a 6x8 area. So that's about the size of the project. Now, if for some reason you wanted a bigger hat, you could resize this square to however big you were thinking. Like if you wanted a 10-inch by 7-inch piece, you could resize this, but you need to select everything. You cannot just resize a portion of a paper project. You're always gonna need to resize everything all together, or will totally throw off everything in your project. So we're gonna resize it together, and then you can just see if this little hat will fit right in that square. And then everything is sized proportionally, and then you could go ahead and cut it. But we're gonna do the 7-inch hat today. I just wanted to show you all that in case you needed to make a smaller hat or a bigger hat. I wouldn't go too much smaller than the 7-inch just because these little teeth on these paper pieces get really, really fine and it's hard for your machine to cut sometimes. So I'm gonna put this back to the 7 inches and we will go ahead and start cutting everything out. So the next thing you're gonna do is select Make It. And then you can see right here, I've got 4 mats ready to go. I'm gonna actually put this single piece onto a different mat because I only wanna cut on 3 pieces. I mean, why waste an entire sheet of cardstock if we don't have to? So I'm just gonna move it on to this one because I can see there's a little bit of space right here and we can move stuff around to make it work. And then I'm just going to put this down here in this lower corner and you can see this is very close right here. So I'm gonna rotate this and we're just gonna sit it right there. And so everything fits. You can see there's nothing on this 4th mat, so nothing's gonna cut off of that. We're only gonna need the 3 sheets of cardstock. So go ahead and select Continue. And we are using an Explore 3 today, but you can use a Maker or whatever die cutting machine that you have. You don't necessarily even need a Cricut to do this project. You can use a Silhouette or whatever die cutting machine that you have on hand. I have played around with 2 different cut settings for this. I thought that the intricate cardstock cut setting was going to be my best bet, but honestly, the medium cardstock setting worked much better for me. And so I've just been sticking with the medium cardstock, which is 80-pound cardstock on default pressure. And we are using the Ashley Falco cardstock today. So this is the red from the Celebration Warehouse, which is the Ashley Falco brand cardstock. We absolutely love Ashley Falco. She makes a shed-proof glitter that is wonderful. If you all are curious about this cardstock and you're wanting to try it out, I've linked it below for you all. But it cuts so well, and this is a color core cardstock. So when I say color core, I'm meaning that the inside of the paper is the same color as the paper. So there are lots of papers that are red on the outside and they'll be white around the edges, and you can tell if you just look at the edge of your paper. But these are color core, which is great for paper crafting because then you can't see all of those seams. And the reason that you want to do color core, you can see on here, all of these edges would be white on the hat, and we really do not want that. So color core is going to be your best bet. So I just used a brayer to make sure this is down really well, and I am using a light grip mat because we're playing with cardstock today. We use anything stronger than a light grip mat, mainly because it's going to fold our paper and it's just going to mess everything up. And then we will go to our Cricut and go ahead and load this in. Like I said earlier, I've got a fine point blade in here and I just put a new blade so I know that it's going to cut really well. Okay, so you can see here some of these little pieces got bunched up, which is going to happen sometimes. It really just depends on your cut settings, and I could go in here and kind of fiddle around with the cut settings and see what's going to work better. Like I said earlier, I did try to use the intricate cut setting, but honestly, it did worse right here with these little teeth, which makes no sense to me, but it is what it is. So the medium cardstock is what worked the best. Now, when you go to remove these, we like to go with gravity around here. I'm just gonna slowly bend my mat back and let all of these paper pieces slowly come off of the mat. Now you'll have these little pieces right here, and we will remove those in just a second, but I'm gonna detach all of these other pieces. Okay, and when you're doing paper crafts, make little piles so that everything is in its own area and you're not losing any of your pieces, because there are lots of pieces for 3D paper crafts. Sometimes I like to take a burnishing tool to pop off all of these. You can even use a spatula. Okay, and we need all of those little rings, so keep up with those. So I've got everything cut out now. Everything is in its own little pile, which makes my heart happy because now I can assemble and have all of my tools ready to. So the first thing we're going to start with is the base of the hat, so where the bill is. And I've got these two pieces right here that we're gonna need to use. And then I have these two pieces. And then this one we're gonna save, just sit it to the side. We're gonna be using it, but we just don't need it for the initial starting of the hats. So on the first hat that I made the mistake of using glue. Now, I put tacky glue in between both of these and put them together. The problem with using glue, especially in paper projects, is you have to be very particular about what type of glue you use because it can get thick, and when it dries, it's lumpy inside. Even if you smooth it out, it dries, it'll curl your paper sometimes. And so that's where the ATG gun comes in. So this is the Advanced Tape Glider. It's just a double-sided adhesive tape dispenser. You just hold this little trigger in, and we're just going to line the hat with ATG. Now you want to make sure that you're getting all of the edges so everything is very well adhered to one another. And if you've never used an ATG gun before, they're very, very handy if you're getting into paper crafting, but they can be kind of a learning curve when you first learn how to use them, especially when you have to go to replace the tape. But once you figure it out, it's really not that difficult. So these are super handy for paper crafting. I use these on every paper craft that I make. Okay, so I just line the whole piece, and then we're going to line this up as well as we can. I like to go to my edges. Okay, and you can even use your brayer to go over top of this. If you don't have a brayer, you can really take your burnishing tool and make sure everything is nice and together. And you all want to make sure everything is lined up perfectly, or as perfectly as you possibly can get it, especially with these paper projects, because everything fits together like a puzzle piece. So these two pieces, we're going to put these on later as well. So just sit those to the side, and we are going to go ahead and move on to the next step. So the next thing we're going to be making is this little inside piece right here. So the border, and that is all of these pieces right here. Okay. So the bottom pieces of these have little tabs. So there's a little tab here, and you can see there's a perforated edge. So those are going to go in, and then these little teeth are going to go in as well. So I'm just going to fold all of them so they're ready to attach to one another. Okay, now we need to attach them together. And so what I'm gonna do, you're just gonna work with two pieces at a time. So I'm just gonna take a piece, I'm gonna flip it over. So all of my little teeth are looking up in my thing, and the tab is pointing up as well. And I'm just gonna add some ATG right here on this flat side that doesn't have any teeth, okay? And then we're gonna take another piece. You can see the teeth right here are going to connect to this flat side. So teeth side to flat side. And I'm just going to line this up. You can flip them over if you need to kind of line it up. And you're also going to be kind of bowing them a little bit, just like this, okay? And then we're just going to push the teeth into that ATG on the back side of the other piece. The good thing about ATG is it's very forgiving. So I can kind of pull up the tabs if I don't get it perfectly lined up on the first try. Okay, so you can see that they're attached, just like that. This is what it looks like on the outside. I'm gonna take a bone folder or just a spatula, and we're gonna push down on that seam to make sure everything is adhered really well to one another. And then we're gonna repeat the process. So I'm gonna walk you all through that process one more time, and then we will just speed up the video because it takes a minute, and it's going to take you all just as long, so just be patient. Paper crafts are very much just kind of like a chill and make your craft. It's not something you want to hurry through, mainly because you want to be as precise as you possibly can be. So like I said earlier, teeth side to flat side. So I'm going to apply the ATG to my flat side. And then we're going to push the teeth into the flat side. And you're gonna need to bow them a little bit, that way they mesh together well, because the hat is rounded. And it's easier for me to come onto this side and see that my seam is lined up. And I'm just pushing those triangles into that ATG really well, making sure there's no gaps and that everything is lined up. Then you can flip it over, take your spatula and just kind of run it along the edges there. Make sure everything is lined up on the outside, and then just keep working your way around. Okay, so I've got all of my pieces together. I just need to connect this end piece. So all I'm gonna do, same thing, I'm just gonna put some ATG here, and then we're gonna connect this left side to the right side, the same as we connected all of the other pieces. Okay, and so this is the inside of our hat, and you can make sure that everything's lined up by kind of putting it on to the hat to make sure all the edges line up, and it looks like they do line up really well. And we can go ahead and attach this to our hat. Now, you can add the ATG onto here, or if it's easier, you can add it onto the hat here. It's gonna be personal preference. Let me see how I wanna do this, because it'd be easier to put it on the base of the hat, honestly. But like these front three pieces, it's hard to know where to put it. What I could do is hold this here and take my little hat. What I think I'm gonna do is go ahead and add on this middle hat brim right here, this piece. I'm gonna go ahead and attach that. That way I've got somewhat of a guideline, and I can put my ATG all the way around this border. So I'm just gonna put some ATG on the back of this guy. I'm just giving myself like a 1/2 inch allowance about all the way around, just kind of eyeballing and making sure everything is lined up, and then I'm gonna burnish that down really good. Then we can line this back up and make sure everything fits. I really wanna put it flush to the back of this, because I don't know, I'm just eyeballing this up here, so I really don't want to trust that measurement yet. So I'm lining it up to the back of the hat, and then check the front, and it looks like it's lined up really well. So I'm just gonna add ATG all the way around this hexagon. So we've got ATG all the way around. I'm going to spin this around so I can line it up really well. And I'm just gonna line this back edge up with the back edge of the hat. And take your bone folder or spatula and push that down really good on that back tab. And then just slowly work your way around, pushing each edge into the paper. Okay, so everything is on here. We are good to go on to the next step. So the next portion would be for us to go ahead and apply the rest of our bill of our hat. So we can just put this right here. And I actually kind of want it to slide up under there. So I'm going to just add some ATG to this, and then we will just slide it right up under that rim. We want to make sure it's the same distance away as the first piece. Okay, and you can just braid it down. So we've got the rim of the hat completely done. I'm gonna go ahead and put this middle insert piece that I said to save. We're gonna put that in here. I'm gonna add the ATG to this piece and try to put it along the edges so it really stays down, and also put some in the middle. So it kind of nestles down in there. You may have to bow the paper to get it to fit. But then you can press it down and just take your spatula, make sure all of those edges are pressed down firmly. Okay, the next thing we need to do is make our lid. So the lid is very similar to the bottom half. It's a little bit more difficult because it comes to a point at the top, but you've got to remember, if you have any little mistakes up here, we're gonna have this little dot on top, so it's gonna be able to cover it up. So I'm just going to bend all of my teeth, just pre-bend all of your teeth, that way they're ready to go. Okay, so we've got this back piece. I'm gonna save him for the end, but we can go ahead and start attaching all of these pieces. So I'm just gonna flip one over and I'm going to apply ATG all the way down this edge. And then you can see these are very, very curved. And so I'm gonna flip this over. So I've got my teeth side going to my flat side, just like we did before. And sometimes you're gonna have to bend this. So I'm gonna start at one edge, lining up those edges, stick that first triangle to the top there. That way it has like an anchor point. And we're just going to bend these together. So it's gonna kind of bend and grab at the same time. So we're bending the paper and pushing the triangle into that back piece of ATG. You can see here, these are not gonna line up unless I bend them. So give yourself some grace. It just takes a second to kind of get a feel for it. But if you start at the top and work your way down, you'll be able to get it. Sometimes even flipping it over and trying to adhere it this way will help. It's just harder to see that you're lining everything up on the outside. So you can kind of feel for it with your finger if you need to. I'm gonna actually attach that bottom piece, and then I can go in here and make sure, you can see there's like little holes kind of in the middle. I can just take my hand on the outside of there and push it in and push it down onto that tape. Okay, perfect. And then I'm gonna take my spatula. So I'm just making sure that everything is attached down really well. And then you're just gonna keep working, doing the same exact step. So we're gonna apply the ATG to this furthest edge from top to bottom. And so I'm gonna just start from one end and work my way up. If the working from the top didn't work for you, start at the bottom and work your way up. So it's gonna start getting kind of pinched together, but we've got our ATG on here, so it's gonna allow us to flex it out a little bit more. And we only have 3 more pieces, so I'm just gonna keep working my way around. So you all see right here where it's so close. I'm having a hard time getting the ATG all the way up here. I could technically use the glue, but it doesn't dry as fast as I want. So I'm gonna put ATG on the pieces that I have left before them to connect to this larger section that we've already made. Way I'm having to pull apart the pieces I've already attached, if that makes sense. So I'm going to apply ATG to all the pieces that I haven't yet put onto our bigger piece. Okay. And then I'm just going to try not to touch that sticky part. I know it's kind of right in the way, but I think it's going to be easier for us to adhere all of our pieces together with it already on there. So you all can see it's very bunched up, but do not be afraid to stretch it out. I've got my last piece here. So remember, we're going teeth to smooth side. Just take your time getting these pieces together. We're almost there. Okay, and then now I'm just going to attach this side to this final piece. Okay, so this is what we are left with. So you can see everything is attached. You can go through and make sure any triangles that may have came up are just pushed down inside of there. And then I'm just going to make sure everything fits on here, and it does, which is great. And then the next thing that we're going to need to do is apply all of our little tiny pieces. So I'm actually just going to move this base so we don't accidentally glue anything together. And I'm going to use some reverse tweezers for this. So I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue on the top of my hat. And then we're just going to attach it. I'm using reverse tweezers for this part. These are very handy for paper crafting. And you can actually flip this over and use your tweezers to push those triangles into that top little dot. Just make sure you don't actually glue your tweezers to your piece. And then I can use my Zig glue pen. This is like a paint marker, but it's got glue on it. And you can just dab a little bit on there, and then we're gonna attach that to this bigger one. Okay, and then I'm gonna take all of these little tiny rings, and these are gonna be attached to all the holes. Just gonna put a little bit of glue, and then we're gonna place them. Okay, and we've got our last and final piece that is going to attach back here. And so you can use hot glue or a Zig pen either way. I'm just gonna put a dot of hot glue here, and then 2 small little dots here. Remember, hot glue dries quickly, so work fast, and we're just lining this up with that edge. Just like so. And then you have completed the entire hat. Now this could be it. This could be all you do. It's still so cute just like this, but we want to add some embellishments. So I'm going to show you all how to create these gold stickers. And then we have this image right here that you all can cut out for yourself if you want to. If you want to put like a sports team on there, you totally could. The options are endless. Okay, I'm gonna show you all first how to make this cute little World's Best Dad. We're just gonna type out the word dad, and I am using the Vintage Jeans font. This is a Maker's Gonna Learn font. If y'all aren't familiar with Maker's Gonna Learn, we do offer thousands of cut files as well as fonts for you all to use commercially if you like, if you were a craft seller, which is really great for those of you who are into selling your crafts. But these fonts are available on the Maker's Gonna Learn website. So I'm just using a vintage font here, and I'm gonna do number 1. You can use whatever font you want. If you wanted like a more varsity font, you could totally do that. I like this vintage though. I'm gonna change this to red, and then I'm going to duplicate it, and we're gonna be stacking this HTV. I'm gonna make this white. Okay, and then we need to add worlds. So worlds, and this font I'm going to use Fierce Sights. We're gonna shrink this down. I'm gonna cut this out of red HTV as well. And then we're just going to use this curve feature up here and curve it around the D. Okay, and then I'm going to select it all, and we're going to add a slight offset, probably like a 0.15. Let me see how that looks. That's a little bit much. I'm going to do slightly smaller. Okay, now I don't want all of these little holes, these gaps in between everything, so you can select your offset in the layers panel, go to contour down here on the bottom right, and we're gonna hide all contours. Okay, beautiful. Now, this is for the label. I'm gonna show you all quickly how to make these stickers as well, and then we will print and cut and do all of that together. So for the stickers, I'm just going to use a basic shape to start. So just pull it in a circle. Okay, we're going to change that to gold. This is our gold section. And then we're going to go to our offset function that we just used. And I'm going to hit negative 0.13. So this is going to give us an actual inset. Okay, so now you can see we've got this black circle in the middle. I'm going to take this down here. We're going to grab another basic shape, just a rectangle, unlock it, and this will allow us to move it however big we want. I just need it right through the middle of this circle. I'm going to select both and make sure that it is perfectly centered. So you go to Align and Center. We're going to combine and subtract. Okay, this is going to give us that little cutout right in the middle of our circle. And then you can select these both and align them again. So that gives us that. Then what we need to do is add a star. So I'm just going to add a star. And listen, this is totally just for funsies. Like, you all do not have to take all of these extra steps. I just feel like these little stickers are so standard for these hats. It just made me happy to add one myself. That's why I love having a Cricut. I'm going to center that up. And we're going to actually add a tiny offset to this star. So like the tiniest offset, 0.03. Make sure it's not negative. And then I'm going to hit apply. And so you all cannot see it here, but I can see that there's an offset over here in the layers panel. So we don't want the star selected. We just want the offset selected. And then this little portion right here. And we're going to slice that star out. Okay, so remove all the portions you don't need. I'm going to change this star to black. Okay, and then we can add in whatever text that you want. You could do to and from, and then put in the names. I'm just going to put made with love for Dada. So made with love for, and then we're just going to shrink this down really tiny. I'm going to change it up here. And the font is actually going to be Hardy Hank. This is also a Maker's Gonna Learn font. So I'm actually going to need to download this Hardy Hank font. So I'm on the Maker's Gonna Learn website. I'm going to fonts, and I'm going to type in Hardy Hank. Okay, and then we're just going to select this little download icon. It's going to go into a zip folder, double click the zip folder. It should pop up a little box. If it doesn't for some reason, go searching through your downloads and you'll see it titled hardyhank.otf. Double click that, install your font. And then we're going to need to reload Design Space. That way it loads it into Design Space so that we can use it. So make sure to save your project, save what you've been working on, which I just did, and I'm going to hit View up here on the top left and reload. And then I'm going to select those words that we chose, go to my system fonts and type in Hardy. There is our font. Now the letters are kind of bunched up, and since we're printing this so small, I'm going to add some letter spacing. I'm going to put a 2 for letter spacing. You can see that gives us a little bit more space in between each letter. That way it's a little bit more legible. You could even do it a little bit more if you wanted to. And then we're going to shrink it down so it fits right inside here. I'm going to duplicate it, and we're just going to type in data. And I'm going to make this as big as I can. Okay. And change these both to black. And then I'm going to select everything, go to align, and center horizontally. Okay. Everything is perfectly aligned. These gold sticker sheets that I've linked for you all, they are 10 sheets for $16. So they're a little bit pricey. You may be able to find them elsewhere. Just look for inkjet, like gold inkjet printable sheets, and that may help you. So before we flatten it, I know that we're gonna have a gold sticker, but we don't wanna print this yellow on our gold paper. So I'm gonna make it white because it doesn't actually print white ink. It just won't print anything. So I'm gonna change it to white, and then we're gonna select everything and flatten it. And so all that you'll really see is this black on the gold printable sheets. Okay, so we've got our elements ready to go. Now I have not resized any of this. So we're gonna need to measure everything before we actually go to cut it out. So let's look at our hat, and we're gonna measure this area for our patch first. So this is gonna be about no wider than 3 inches. So let's go into design space. I'm gonna select everything for my patch, and we're gonna make sure, I'm gonna put it right at 3 inches. You could even go like 2.85, and that's gonna be perfect. And then I'm also gonna make sure that my dad and my one are attached. I'm gonna select them both in the layers panel. I'm gonna attach them. And then I'm also gonna attach the red data number 1 so that they cut directly together. Okay. And then for this guy, we need to measure the bill of our hat, or wherever you plan on putting your sticker. And so I'm wanting to put it kind of on the edge here. So like, I don't want to make a 2-inch sticker. It's going to take up that whole area. So I'm thinking like 1 1/4 or 1 1/2. Let's do 1 1/4. So back in design space, you can see it's 2 inches right now. I want that to be 1.25. Okay. And then we're going to go to make it. You can see I've got my 1 sticker there. Now, if you intend to make lots of these hats, I would encourage you to print your stickers all at once. If you know who they're going to be for, you can change data to grandpa or cousin or whoever's name you want it to be for, whatever you want it to say. But the sheets are $16 for 10 sheets, I believe, which is a little bit pricey in my opinion. So I would hate for you all to waste a ton of that gold paper. But if you have other sticker ideas for the gold paper, you could do that too. Like I said before, this is just totally optional. I just feel like it adds that extra touch. And then you can see down here, we've got our offset for our patch for our hat. That's going to be cut out of cardstock. And then we have our words. This is all going to be cut out of vinyl. So let's go back up to the top. We'll start with our print then cut. I'm going to select continue. And we're going to need to send this to the printer. So these sheets are 8.5 by 11 sheets. Make sure you have the correct printer selected. We do not need a bleed. We are going to use system dialog. Get in the habit of using the system dialog when you're printing. That way you get the best prints, and I'm going to show you all why. So turn on your system dialog, select print. If you're using a Mac, the dialog box may not pop up for you. So what you're going to need to do is just drag this down. Windows, it'll typically pop up in the front. And then I'm going to make sure my printer is selected correctly. Make sure my paper size is correct. And then under media and quality, you're going to have this feed from drop-down menu. Select rear tray. Auto select for media type typically. And then I'm going to do best quality. So this is going to give me the best quality print every single time. And then I can go ahead and print that. Okay, so these are the gold sheets that I ordered. You can see I pre-made some of these already. So for bigger hats, you can use these bigger stickers. And then obviously we've got these smaller stickers here for these smaller brimmed hats. But this paper is very high quality. Just make sure that you're purchasing the gold foil for inkjet. I did purchase these off of onlinelabels.com. I've bought stuff from them before and it always is really good quality. I've linked them below for you all if you're curious. So I'm just going to line this up to the top left corner. And like I was saying earlier, if you can, try to put multiple stickers on one sheet. I will also say that ink is wet, so a brayer is probably best for rolling. I would not take a squeegee over this and try to flatten it out. And you can even let it dry for a minute before you touch it. Then we can go ahead and send this through the Cricut. So back in Design Space, I'm going to browse all materials. I'm going to type in foil. There is an adhesive foil cut setting here. Now you could use sticker paper, but you're gonna have to use a lot more pressure. I had to run it through a couple times when I did that. So I'm gonna do this adhesive foil and see how that one works. I just think that it's gonna work a little bit better because this is a gold foil sticker paper. So before I pull it up, I wanna make sure that it cut all the way through. I'm gonna actually let that run one more time, and I can tell that my machine needs to be calibrated. That's totally fine. You guys are gonna be able to get the concept, but I would recommend calibrating your machine before you do these stickers. I did have to calibrate the other machine. I actually made the original ones on a maker, and I did calibrate it first, and they look much better. So you can just pull this off. Make sure you're not, when you're testing to see if it's cut, push to the outside, not to the inside, so you don't actually scratch your sticker like I'm doing now. You need to be very, very careful. So it cut through the second time, but not great. It could honestly, a third pass probably would do it perfectly. I'm gonna actually use one of the ones I cut before. I did cut these originally on sticker paper, like removable sticker paper with more pressure, and I did extra passes, 2 or 3 extra passes. So this paper is a lot thicker. You're just gonna have to remember that when you're cutting it. So calibrate it. Sticker paper cut setting with more pressure is gonna be your best bet. So these are the ones that I made with the machine already being calibrated, and you can see they come off really well. We can just add this here. Okay, and now we can cut out our patch. So you're only gonna need a couple things for the patch. I've got a mini easy press. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on to the medium heat setting. And then I have some black glitter cardstock. This is shed-proof glitter cardstock that I was telling you all that we're so in love with from Ashley Falco. You can find it on her Celebration Warehouse website. I've linked it below for you all. I've got some red HTV, which is heat transfer vinyl. And then I have some white heat transfer vinyl. So we are going to go back into Design Space. And I'm going to find our little black patch. We're going to start here, okay? And I'm just going to browse on materials, and we're going to do this on glitter cardstock. Hit done. And then I'm just going to put my piece of cardstock on my mat. And then we're going to run this through the Cricut. So before I remove it from the mat, I'm gonna make sure it cut all the way through. And it did, so we can remove it from the Cricut. I always like to go with gravity. There's our little patch. Now I'm going to cut our vinyl. We're gonna start with the red here. And you could technically use a standard grip mat for this. This light grip mat is actually pretty sturdy. So I'm gonna use it. It's relatively new. And y'all, this is a Temu Cricut mat. And I have been using it religiously for like the last 2.5 weeks. 10 out of 10 recommend the Temu mats. They're way cheaper and they work just as good. I've also put my HTV shiny side down or carrier sheet side down. And I'm gonna need to mirror this in Design Space. So make sure you select mirror before you cut. You can even bump these closer to one another if you want. We could technically just take this worlds right here and place it where we want, but honestly, I probably should have attached it in Design Space to make it easier. So I'm going to cut them separately. That way I can place this one exactly where it needs to go on that cardstock. So I'm going to hit done. And then we're going to do the everyday iron on cut setting and keep it at default pressure. Something that I do want to point out whenever you're making this patch for your hat is that adhesive vinyl is not going to stick to glitter cardstock. So if you have red and white adhesive vinyl and you're wanting to put it on black glitter cardstock, you are going to have the worst time. So I recommend if you do want to use adhesive vinyl that you use just a plain black cardstock versus a glitter. And if you're wanting to use glitter, you're going to need to use heat transfer vinyl in there. That way it can actually activate the adhesive and it'll stick to the glitter. The normal sticky adhesive, it's not going to stick to glitter and it's going to give you such a headache. So just a little tip there. So before I take this off, I'm just going to make sure that it's cut all the way through, and it looks like it has, so we can remove it from the Cricut. Okay, so white is going to go carrier sheet side down, and we're going to cut this one exactly the same as the red one using the everyday iron on cut setting, and make sure it is mirrored in Design Space. So while that's cutting, I'm going to go ahead and weed out the rest of this. Okay, I'm going to make sure that this cut all the way through, and it did. We can remove it from the Cricut. So I've got all of my elements here. I am going to cut this worlds off so we can apply it separately. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually put the worlds on first. Okay, you can see right here. You're just going to line it up with the offset. And I'm just going to take my easy press and just barely apply heat. This adheres very quickly. Okay, and then slowly peel it off. So I want this to just go right there in the offset. Go ahead and apply some heat. This adheres really well, so you do not need a ton of heat. Just be careful when you pull it up. Okay, and then I'm going to take the white portion and just kind of set it off just barely to the side. And then we're going to remove that. And you've got your little patch. And then we can just put a little hot glue on the back of this. And I'm going to attach this to the front of our hat. Just make sure you're looking at the back and that you're selecting the right area to put it in, especially if you're wanting it on the front and center. I'm just going to put a little dot of glue there. And then we're going to apply it just like so. And there you have it. You can put in any candy or filler or whatever you would like, and you are good to go. What did you all think about this craft today? I love it so much. And honestly, the second time I'm making it, it felt a little bit easier. So if you make one and you're like, ugh, that was so stressful, I want you all to consider making another one or making 2 or 3 more. It gets easier the more you do it. And I just think that goes for all 3D paper crafts, honestly. But I really love how this turned out, and it's so cute and easy to customize. If you all make one of these, make sure to leave us a comment and let us know. If you're a member, post a picture in our members only Facebook group. We would love to see it. I would love to see the color choices and all of the things that you all do to customize these hats. And if you are new here, make sure to click the subscribe button below and the little bell so you're notified every time that we post new crafty videos. If you all like this video, make sure to watch this one up here. I think you're gonna love it just as much.